Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast, and today we're going to be taking a look at a very peculiar and unique car called the Spyker C8. Now this is a misprint on the base because it says Spyker C12, but if you look at the images on Google, that is a very different car, and this one is definitely the C8 and not the C12. Spyker is a Dutch company, and so this is, in fact, the first and only Dutch supercar in my collection. And if you look at the logo right next to Spyker, you can see that it looks like an aircraft propeller. And the reason for that is back in the day, they used to manufacture airplanes. Let's get it out of the box. Production of this car started in 2000, and it has been in production for 25 years now, and is currently in its third generation. This car, however, is the Gen 1 Spyker C8, which was made from 2000 to 2009. Originally as the Spyder, and then from 2001 onward also as a hardtop version called the Spyker C8 La Violette. The Gen 2, which became known as the Spyker C8 Aileron, was produced from 2009 to 2018, and from 2018 onward, the Gen 3, the Preliator, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it has been the current Gen Spyker C8, so to speak. But even this Gen 1 from 25 years ago has a timeless design and still looks futuristic to this day. And looking at all this brushed aluminum and emphasis on styling, Spyker is sometimes called the Dutch Pagani, and that also reflects on the sticker price, because back when this car rolled off the assembly line, it did so for $270,000. So taking a look at the front of the 143 scale Spyker C8, you can see that the front is quite interesting looking. I mean, it does have those circular headlights that do remind me a little bit of the Ferrari 360 from the early 2000s. In the middle, we have the Spyker logo, which, as I mentioned earlier, is made to look like the front of a turboprop aircraft. And I think they captured the details quite well on the logo. As for the headlights, well, they've always looked a bit weird, but at least we don't have like a big peg in the center, and you can see that we have smaller lights inside the headlight housings. I think there's supposed to be 3 of them in total. And then we have a front grille where we have the Spyker script. And underneath we have the license plate saying Spyker as well. And all of this is, of course, flanked by 2 fog lamps, which are also separate pieces and not just part of the car body. See, it's even got like a bit of a texture going on that grille, so that's very nice. As we move on further up, you can see the peculiar indent of the front hood here, and that's because we have here another grille for the radiator. However, it doesn't really have any kind of texture, but we do get these vents here, and they're actually real vents, so that's nice. And now if we take a look at these mirrors, you can see that they're made out of chrome, so they do stick out a little bit in terms of texture compared to the car body itself. And here's a look at the side of the Spyker C8, and you can see just how unique the shape of this supercar is. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It looks very aerodynamic, not necessarily in terms of the body shape, but like in terms of the amount of vents it has. I think the only other car that I have in my collection that has this many vents is the Celine S7. You can see that we have triple vents both in the front overhang and behind the front fender, and of course the ones that I mentioned that were on top of it. And then we have the indicator here painted in white as a separate indent, although not a separate piece. And then over here we have these 2 really interesting chrome NACA ducts, and they are done really nicely for a car of this size and this price category. And we also have Spyker written behind the lower one. Now, despite this being a 143 scale car, you can see that it has brake discs. And I believe here in the back, this might actually be a brake caliper, because there's like a little black thing attached to it on one side, or maybe it's just some dirt, I'm not sure. But the wheels do roll nicely, as you can see. Now, you might be wondering where the door handle is, because this car doesn't have one in the traditional space. And the reason for that is because they've actually made it a button which you have to press, and it is located on the mirror stock. Like right behind here on the side mirrors. There's a little button on the real car which you press, and that opens the door, which swings up in a sort of scissor door style. Really peculiar way to get into this car. And looking at the back of the 143 scale Spyker C8 by Altaya, you can see that the back is also quite realistic looking compared to the real car. We have the same layout for the tail lights, although of course the top two ones are just painted in orange, while the brake lights are in a separate red sort of material. Now, the two silver ones in the center are actually the car's exhausts, and the centers of those exhaust pipes haven't been painted in, but they are chrome just like on the real car. I mean, I suppose on the real car they'd be brushed aluminum, but underneath we have the Spyker rear license plate, and then above we have the Spyker logo, which again is the propeller, and on top of that we have the third brake light. Now, the car also has like two more lights on either side of the Spyker rear license plate. One is red, one is white. I'm not sure if it's like that on the real car or not. But there's also something else written on the grille, and I'm not sure what it's supposed to say. But now as we move on further up, we get to the engine of this car. And this car has a powertrain that is based off an Audi R8, I think. Basically a 4.2-liter V8 doing about 400 horsepower. Naturally aspirated, of course. The top speed is 300 kph, and 0 to 100 kph acceleration takes 4.5 seconds. Another thing Altaya got right on this model is that the rear fenders of the Spyker are so wide that they take up more lateral space than both side view mirrors. And now let's check out the interior of the 143 scale Spyker C8. And the interior is arguably the most interesting part about this model because of how many details there are. Now, of course, on first glance, you can see that the center gauges there are just painted on instead of being like separate or anything, but of course you have to keep in mind this is a 143 scale car. But what I like is the fact that they managed to replicate that really interesting looking steering wheel right there, which kind of looks like a steering wheel of a ship, or some might even say a propeller of a plane, but to me it looks more like a steering wheel of a ship because of the four like struts or bars, whatever. And then in the middle we have the shift knob, and the shift knob rests atop like the linkage that connects to the transmission, which is completely exposed, and it's also like that on the real car. Now, we do get the rear view mirror right there. The way the windows are shaped, they kind of remind me of the Bugatti EB110's windows. And another interesting thing about the Spyker is that it has a frameless windshield, so there's no structural brace between the A-pillars, and therefore no sun visors. Now behind the seats we have these two chrome reinforcing anti-roll bars, or hoops in this case. And of course the windows are done very nicely. As for the seats are also done very nicely because they have this really nice texture going on. And You also have like the holes in the neck area. So yeah, I mean, even the door cards look good. And therefore I was surprised with the amount of details for this model, which essentially only cost me like 12 euros or something on Modellissimo. And that was kind of the reason why I added it to my collection. And it's a pretty rare car in real life to boot. Way more rare than any Ferrari. And finally, taking a look at the bottom of the car, you can see that there's not much here, except it says 143, Spyker C12, and we've got a little bit of cabling detail here. Not much in terms of exhaust detailing. Can't even find the exhaust, actually. It's kind of a mess. But, yeah, I mean, tire tread is also okay. So, there you go. So I hope you guys enjoyed my review of this really quirky, exotic Dutch supercar called the Spyker C8. And if you're interested in more reviews like this, be sure to check out some of the others on my channel here. And as always, guys, take care, have a wonderful day, and this is Imperial Diecast, signing out.